Yeah, we have in this episode a retired NBA superstar and his wife both race to the courthouse on the same day to, wait for it, file for divorce against each other. There's body cam footage, CPS allegations, Instagram meltdowns. Our episode this week has got it all.
Welcome to another episode of the I Just Want This Done podcast, episode 55, the double nickel. Okay, so we got a lot going on here. Welcome to the best divorce show on the planet, I Just Want This Done. Stolen the title from my book, I Just Want This Done, How Smart, Successful People Get Divorced Without Losing Their Kids, Money, and Minds. Coming at you from Chicago, we're attorneys at STG Divorce Law, and we like to give you a little bit of entertainment and education about the divorce, marriage, relationship world to help you navigate divorce, but also to give you a couple laughs along the way. So without delaying this any further, let's get rocking and rolling. By the way, new season of the show. I guess we can call it a new season. We're well into 2026. We've got 54 episodes behind us, and we're still doing these weekly. We're excited about it. And we got the spring flowers or spring showers, definitely. Hopefully will bring May flowers. So we just got into April here as we're recording the show. So we want to make sure we tease a couple stories for you because we're broadcast professionals. We've got Dwight Howard's race to the courthouse, Jessica Alba's $3 million settlement, Jack's and Brittany's custody deal, including sobriety clauses. We'll dig into that, and a legal deep dive. What happens when substance abuse shows up in a custody case? So Rahul, tell us about Jessica Alba and Cash Warren.
Yeah, so those who don't know, Jessica Alba and Cash Warren just recently got divorced. On March 16th, so a couple weeks ago from the date of this show, E! News revealed how this couple is splitting their assets. So they were in California, and so they'll divide everything according to what they considered community property that was accumulated from the date of marriage until the date of their separation, which the documents list as December 27th of 2024. Now, that includes investments in companies like WeWork, Culver Studio stocks, as well as furniture and art from their former home that they bought together. So according to E! Online, they have 3 children, Honor, Haven, and Hayes, and Jessica has to pay Cash of $5 million from the sale of...
Cash is getting a nice job. Very good.
From the sale of one of their homes they own together, and set aside $500,000 for their children's expenses. So here it says $5 million. On a complex.com article, which also reported on the division, the article says that Alba will pay Warren $3 million as part of the asset division. The two will not exchange spousal or child support, and they'll share responsibility for the 3 children. They'll each keep whatever personal property that they have together. And also, Jessica Alba will retain, everyone knows her for, obviously, her acting. She also, a lot of people now obviously know as well that she has the Honest Company, which just shot up her superstardom. And so she's going to keep a portion of her holdings in the Honest Company, including both the vested and restricted shares. And so a lot of people say this is the quintessential way of how you should really, really divide up a marital estate and proceed with divorce amicably.
What's the gist there?
The gist there is that it's not messy. There's no spousal support, so there's none of this money monthly going back and forth. They were both on the same page as it relates to how this needs to be done. There was a cash offset, so no one was going scorched earth on everything. Stayed out of the media. There wasn't any, hot stories coming in weekly about their fights in court, like you've heard with a lot of other celebrities that you'll hear allegations of abuse or misappropriation, regarding finances, children, etc. And we've talked about a lot of this in our previous episodes with different celebrities, but they both, it helps that they were both very, very successful professionals. And Jessica Alba's attorney, Laura Wasser, we always talk about her.
Laura Wasser, the disso queen, as they say in the news.
Exactly. And so, great divorce. They're done. And she's now dating Danny Ramirez. And I think he started dating, recently, a model, Hannah Sunder, I think is how you say it.
Yeah, let's check out Hannah's Insta because now we got the high-tech sharing, folks, for you. This is why you want to watch YouTube, okay? Hannah looks like maybe just a little younger than Jessica. And she has I don't know if that's her car, but a little Mini But yeah, she's Instagram model at least, right? Okay, there you go.
Great. So they both moved on, so that's good.
Yeah. And then who's the guy that Jessica's hanging out with?
Danny Ramirez. He is an actor, by all accounts, a nice guy. I think he was in Top Gun.
Oh yeah. Danny Ramirez. I've seen this dude, yeah. Handsome devil. There's the Top Gun picture.
There he is with Jessica Alba. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Wait, oh, really? Wait a minute. Where was that? Right here?
Yep.
Oh, look at this. She says, My Little Hearts.
CDMX. So they were in Ciudad, Mexico. So Mexico City.
Oh,
the flight code for those who know.
So next we've got the Dwight Howard messy marriage. This one's juicy. Let me get my pages arranged for the audience here. Okay. So Dwight Howard, this is a very brief marriage, ladies and gentlemen, about 14 months. Both filed for divorce on the same day, March 9th. Dwight's paperwork was processed first, so he won the race to the courthouse, and we'll discuss that in a minute. Amber, Amy Luciani, I don't know why she's called Amber, that must be her nickname, filed once before in July 2025, withdrew the case, they reconciled. This time her filing is definitive, in quotes. Amber posted Insta videos alleging substance abuse, and claiming Child Protective Services had taken Dwight's daughter from a previous relationship. Dwight demanded exclusive use of his Georgia mansion. Mutual restraining orders and evidence preservation warnings have been issued. So we'll talk about that. Some body cam footage shows police responding to the home for a fourth time in the year. This sounds very messy. Dwight told officers his dog died under Amber's watch and she'd gone, quote, berserk. Amber previously appeared on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. Haven't watched it, but there you go. Dwight announced his NBA retirement 3 days after filing for divorce. Okay, so let's dig in a little bit to the stories here. I've got a couple of details. I won't share all these stories, but this is kind of a counterpoint to the divorce where things are done and settled and people keep it offline and they don't blow things up. There's a lot of online shade being thrown back and forth. Dwight filed for divorce Monday morning in March. They were married. They said they weren't separated with no hope of reconciliation. Dwight said the marriage is irretrievably broken, which of course we always say in our divorce pleadings. So Amber, more widely known as Amy Luciani, made shocking claims against Dwight. In Instagram videos, she alleged CPS took his daughter. This is, of course, her allegation, not us saying it. This is as reported in the TMZ story. All stories, of course, as always, are linked in the description for the show. Credit to TMZ for this story. They have a couple stories on this topic. Dwight and Amber have had a rocky romance. We talked about the previous filing that was withdrawn and refiled. He filed around then and dismissed it. Then body cam stuff happened. Their messy home life's on public display. This is another TMZ story. Body cam footage showing the two trading jabs during a tense encounter at the Georgia mansion. This is me quoting the TMZ story. The new footage was recorded March 6th, shows Amber waiting outside the gate of the estate, complaining Dwight locked her out after getting upset, something she said he does frequently. Amber said this is actually, she told officers in the video, it was the fourth time police have been called to the house. Eventually, in the video, Dwight appears with his son and two men. Amber claims he just met days earlier on a celebrity numbers app, not sure what that is, saying he hired them on the spot to pressure wash the property. Okay. Why are they? That's weird. Okay. At one point, Dwight pulls an officer aside and lets the son explain what happened the night before. Well, you don't put the kid in the middle. That's not good. So there's all this discussion apparently in the video back and forth. And Dwight tells the officer he's retiring from basketball. The son seems surprised about it, apparently. And then Dwight alleges to one of the officers that the dog died while under Amber's watch. So all this back and forth, kind of like what I call eye poking, like the Three Stooges, bump, 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 yelling at each other, saying stuff to the cops. So long story short, it's very messy with accusations of this video and stuff like that. And this is really contrasting with the Jessica Alba divorce where things were settled amicably.
Yeah, this is what not to do or what you should try to avoid doing.
Let's talk briefly about, does it matter who goes to the courthouse first, Rahul? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it matters in the sense of, if there's issues of jurisdiction and, or I should say venue or jurisdiction, I guess, if you have multiple residences in multiple states or at least multiple counties within the same state, it could matter where you're being venued. So it would matter for that sense. But if you guys are going to file in the same county, in the same courthouse, then no, it does not matter who goes to the courthouse first.
Yeah. I used to tell people it didn't matter at all. I've slightly revised my remarks on that. My only change on that is the person who files first goes first at trial. And there is a slight advantage to being the first to go to trial because you get the first word and the last word at the end of closing argument. That's really the long and short of it, other than the personal jurisdiction issue might come into play, but it's rare that you have like two fairly equal venues or jurisdiction might be proper in two places.
It's like a forum shopping issue, right? You might think, one courthouse is more favorable, in a small town versus in a big city.
You just rarely see that, right? Outside of law school, like they give you these outlier cases in law school and you think like, oh, jurisdiction and venue is an issue all the time. And it's like 1 in 1,000. We have one case a year, maybe, or two where we get into some issue about, is this proper in state A or B? Is the venue right in this county or that county? Let's talk briefly. Danger of social media during divorce. Amber's Instagram stuff could be used against her as evidence. So our advice to people is go dark on social. And these celebs should certainly not be posting bad stuff on social. It can boomerang in a number of ways. All these posts are discoverable by the other side and admissible in evidence typically. You're just manufacturing evidence for the other guy to use.
Don't make someone else's job easy for them.
And one other note, short marriages with no kids, but kids from prior relationships, these can still be messy. You both brought kids to a new home. You've got financial issues. It's still not going to be some easy divorce. Other thing is like restraining orders when people live together. They're not super easy to get in Illinois unless you've got really strong allegations of abuse. And typically they tend to be more aggressive in the enforcement than most people want them to be. They throw people out of the house. They have no contact orders. And a lot of times people kind of regret it to some extent because they say, gee, I just want him to leave me alone and stop calling me and texting me all the time. But I do want him to pick up the kids and take them to school or whatever. And the problem is it's kind of a nuclear bomb, right? You get like one flavor. You don't get to dial in the strength of the order protection.
Right.
It's kind of a bomb, a nuclear bomb, and that's it. That's all you get. And it's a lot of times more intense than is necessary. Our suggestion, Rahul, right, would be call us first, talk to a lawyer, whether STG divorce law or somebody else, and get some advice before you run to the courthouse and get an order of protection. There may be a better way to handle the problem. Rahul, what do you tell clients who say, I want to go public with my story and tell the world what a jerk this guy is and put it on social and blast him?
Don't, is what I would say. Okay, let's keep this, manageable for court purposes. Your goal at this divorce is not to go public. That's not your goal. You can do that whenever you want. Let's get the divorce wrapped up first, then you do whatever you want to do, because you going public is going to, again, like with social media, is going to be used against you or tried to be, or just no good can come of it, because the court's not going to be influenced by what kind of a person this person you're going public with is, because they have to just look at the evidence and the facts. So they don't care if you go public. In fact, it might just get them more annoyed because now you're causing distractions within the case itself. So
yeah, it's bad meta case stuff. And we talk about the meta case, the stuff around the law and the facts, the way the judge perceives you, the way the other lawyer perceives you, the way the guardian ad litem sees you. And if you're throwing mud out there, it's just not a good look, even if you're right. Yeah. One thing I've said it's in the beginning of my book, I Just Want This Done. I say, you can be right or you can be happy. Usually you alienate more people than people who are allied to your cause are going to be allied to your cause. They're already on your side. People that aren't, you're not going to win over by blasting the other guy on social media. You start looking bad. Like, well, why are you throwing all this dirt? Maybe you're at fault for some of it. And I've just seen it in our experience. It blows back too often. So yeah, don't. Rahul, talk about Jax Taylor and Brittany Cartwright.
Yeah, so Jax Taylor and Brittany Cartwright, for those who don't know, are alums, we can call them, of Vanderpump Rules, and also I think are now in the Valley. So reality TV, or if you want to call it reality TV, They have a child, a 4-year-old son named Cruz, and they just worked out a custody deal as part of their legal divorce process after nearly 2 years. Following, I think they were married 5 years. So following 5 years of marriage, they filed for divorce, and then 2 years of divorce later, they've got this. So they announced their breakup according to E! Online on August of 2024, and their son is diagnosed with autism, according to the article on TMZ. And essentially, they agreed on joint legal custody, responsibility in making decisions for the child's health, education, general welfare, although Brittany, the mom, will have final say in health decisions if she and Jax cannot come to an agreement. It also says neither party will be required to pay child support, and they'll just be responsible for the expenses, during their associated with Cruz when he's in their custody. And they have a holiday schedule and a timeline for when he's allowed to meet either parent's significant other, which I thought was, we've talked about this before. There's a 6-month waiting period, according to the documents, before you can meet someone's significant other. And also, they've agreed not to be under the influence of alcohol, marijuana, or any other form of illegal drug while the child is in their custody. Very interesting sort of set of rules and guidelines as it relates to the parenting time.
Can you address the 6-month thing? I think that's interesting. And we've talked a little bit about some of this before.
Yeah. So 6-month thing is completely made up and arbitrary. We've talked about this in the past. I question if it's even enforceable. So basically what they're saying is if you start seeing someone, a significant other, that person cannot be introduced to the child for at least 6 months after you've started dating this person. So there's a 6-month waiting period. And the first question is why? I mean, you don't want to bring every single person you date around the child, but also you have to understand that a parent probably won't do that, as the general course is anyway. It doesn't say you can't date the person for 6 months. It says you can't bring the person around the child for 6 months. And this is kind of, I think it's kind of stupid because not in this specific case, just as a general concept, because you shouldn't be able to control someone else's sort of life, but also more importantly, there's nothing you can do about it. There's no enforcement provision. It's also arbitrary, right? I mean, how are you can't put it back into the box if the person is introduced.
So this is really the crux. Like, we're not saying the thought is stupid. We get it. Your goal is noble. And that is, we don't want the boyfriend of the week to be around the kids, or the girlfriend of the week, is the kids are going to get confused and it's rough and all that. And that makes sense. What ends up happening in practice, and this is what Rahul and I have seen over the years, is these things are what we call aspirational. There's several things in parenting agreements that are just wishes. Like, we hope this is the case. This is like good behavior guidelines, but they're virtually impossible to enforce. So what we mean is, okay, so let's say Jax has a girlfriend over and the kid sees the girlfriend come in and out of the house when he's going on a date, and the babysitters come over to watch the kid. And the girlfriend comes in and Jax leaves and gets in his G-Wagon and drives off to wherever. Okay. The kid saw the girl for 5 minutes. Is this a violation of the thing? I guess technically. What are we going to do about it? Now we're going to go to court, file a petition for rule to show cause to hold this guy in contempt of court for violating the 6-month rule. Meanwhile, Brittany probably has a guy around here or there, or a guy drops her off at the house and the kids are press their nose against the window and they see this dude. And what does introducing mean?
Well, right, exactly. And we're not saying that these things are happening. It's just, examples. Typically when you try to hold someone in contempt, there's got to be a way you can purge yourself of the contempt.
The thing about contempt is the court has to fashion a purge. And the purge is, how do you get somebody out of the contempt? And basically they have to stop doing what they did. Well, if it happened one time in the past, then the judge is just going to say, well, don't do it again. You spent a bunch of money for fees for what? This is one of the number one I can think of where it's one of these aspirational clauses that just ends up kind of causing more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very hotly contested because, people want to think about it from a principle perspective, which is nothing wrong with that in principle. And that's where you trust the other person to do the right thing.
Yeah. And everybody always thinks about it too, from their perspective. They think about, well, I don't want him to have a girl come over to the house. They never think about it affecting them. And they can't imagine that the person pushing for this clause typically can't imagine that it'd be something they would violate. And maybe it wouldn't be, but the shoe oftentimes is on the other foot. And before you know it, I don't know who wanted this clause. Maybe they both agreed to it, but somebody asked for it.
Who brought it up? Right. It's
typically mom, but not always. I've seen it go the other way. And then they think, it'll never be me. And then she brings the guy over. We've seen this game before. So you're better off not putting this stuff in those agreements. Or if you do, understand that it's going to be hard to enforce and you're just kind of putting in a rules for good behavior type of thing. And anyway, I digress. So here's another one. Similarly, can't speak negatively about the other person in front of the child. And this is in every parenting agreement. And it should be. I'm okay with these. These are the aspirational guidelines. So don't speak ill of the other parent in front of the kid is in every parenting custody agreement, right?
And should be.
Good luck enforcing it.
Exactly. So what does it mean from like an enforcement perspective? We know what it means, as an aspirational sort of a rule. Yeah, don't do this. Make sure you speak about them and don't hold them in negative light or something like that. It's like, I don't know what that means from like an enforcement perspective.
If it was some egregious and repeat thing, you might have something. But even then, what's your remedy? One of the ironies in Illinois is the only real remedy you have for custody stuff is like less parenting time with the other parent. And that's kind of a weird punishment because the kids should be with both parents and you're taking on more parenting responsibilities. These are sticky wickets, to say the least. So, and this alcohol and drug thing, this is, again, a noble cause. This is in most parenting agreements that will not under influence of drugs, alcohol. You can't have DUIs and stuff like that, driving the kids around. Those are obvious ones. The more subtle one is, so dad can't have a beer when the kids are around.
So if the kids are around and dad has a beer while watching, Final Four basketball, Illinois versus the UConn, and the kids are either in bed or they're out playing in the backyard and with their friends, or they've got, sort of like, okay, so one Bud Light at that time is a violation, which, I mean, given your circumstances, maybe you shouldn't drink it, but I'm just saying it seems, again, arbitrary.
How do you monitor that? How do you check it? Now, right, Rahul, we're making a distinction against the true addicts. And it's important for us to say that. We've got cases with DUIs. We have cases with very serious alcohol abuse where there's ankle monitors and breathalyzers. That's not what we're talking about.
No, we're talking about your general sort of day-to-day kind of just average co-parenting situation where it's like, oh, he was drinking with the child. It sounds very inflammatory. It's like, well, what do you mean he was drinking with the child? Well, I had a Bud Light watching the game, or your beer of choice. We're not sponsored by Bud Light, but in your cases, like your extraordinary cases where there are ankle monitors, breathalyzers and such, yes, maybe one beer is one too many. And I get that. Maybe it's a slippery scale, or they have a history where that sort of leads to worse behavior. But again, just having a general phrase like this is the heart's in the right place from a principle perspective. Of course, no one's going to quote unquote drink, or you should say drink in excess. But then what does in excess mean?
Yeah. And then the kids effectively become the tattletales for this stuff.
Did you see your dad drinking anything? What did it look like? Oh, the child told me dad was drinking something in a silver can.
And then that's a two-way street. The kids are blabbing to the other parent about what you're doing. So it's okay to have these provisions in there, and they're always in these agreements. You just have to be careful. It's just a matter of degree. And if dad's driving drunk, yeah, we got a problem. If dad had a drink, had a beer watching Final Four and the kids went to bed or something, you really got nothing. And you have to be careful about it. So I think that's good. Let's sort of expand this a little bit more and talk a little bit more about substance abuse. Rahul, when does substance abuse really become a custody issue? And I think we're sort of nibbling away at that.
Yeah, I think the key distinction is it's, a distinction between occasional recreational use versus it actually affecting the parenting itself. If it's going to lead to a person making bad decisions during parenting time, leaving the child unsupervised, passing out near the child, if it's a safety issue, if there is some sort of impairment for the parenting, and it's not just a beer during the game, then at that point, if it starts affecting your day-to-day parenting scope and situation, then yes, then it does become a custody issue. Like you said, driving drunk or not being sober enough. The child has an accident. The child drops something on his leg and cracks his ankle, or falls off the trampoline. And now you can't drive to the hospital because you've had 4 beers. So what do? Do you call the other parent and say, I can't take him because it's, I'm drunk? Like, I mean, those are the kind of things, right? So you have to make wise decisions, and you have to understand that you're not here partying with your friends. You do have a child at the house. So if you must have one drink, go ahead. But it's sort of one of those where don't do it if it's in violation of any court order that you're under. And secondly, make sure it's not impairing your parenting ability, or that should an emergency or something else occur, you're going to be ready, willing, and able to do what you need to do. So
yeah, that's great. And the testing methods used, if a court orders drug testing or alcohol testing, there's random drops where you have to show up at a testing facility, random dates and times. They call you in and you have to be there within a certain time. They do hair follicle. No, it's not. They do urine tests. They do hair follicle testing.
They'll do nail testing even, depending on the drugs, because each one of these have different half-lives or times it'll be in your system.
And there might be breathalyzer, the device installed in a car. SoberLink is like an anklet that detects use of alcohol. That could be remote monitoring. That's something that technology didn't exist 20 some years ago, and now we see that more commonly with the case where there's serious alcohol abuse. So they'll have to like in order to get their parenting time, they need to use the SoberLink on a regular basis. Who pays for testing? It depends. Typically, it's the person who's drinking, or the person. It could be split from marital funds.
And what happens when someone violates something like this, Rafe? What would you do? Again, I know we talked about it. Yeah.
We talked about the rule to show cause. That's the holding them in contempt. That's can be useful if it's serious enough and you have good enough evidence.
However, I would say just the distinction, I think, is that if there's a rule or an order that says absolutely no drinking and you have one drink, that's a violation.
That's a problem. Right. There may be a reason for that. We're distinguishing that from the generic clause in a parenting agreement that says, no drinking around the children or drugs. Yeah. But there may be some court order because somebody has a past history. They had 2 DUIs and the court says they can't have any alcohol or drugs around the children as a protective measure. If there is one drink, then that's actionable and you can take them to court right away. And custody can be modified on an emergency basis. So that is something you can go in an emergency motion to modify parenting time and restrict the other person from seeing the kids if you have good cause. Allegations, so emergency motions versus, standard, want to mention one thing. There's a distinction between emergency motions that are temporary in nature and a full-on modification of custody. Emergency motions can be filed like immediately with no notice, and then you have an immediate hearing. The court may, or short notice, and the court may decide that, well, I want to give them a little notice and may set a hearing depending on the severity of the situation. The court might push out the hearing date and allow the other person to respond, or it might be done in the form of a temporary restraining order where the court takes action immediately because the harm to be avoided is serious. Your mileage may vary depending on the circumstances, but you can take a pretty immediate action if it's a serious situation. But normal custody modification takes months, generally speaking. And if it's like not a life or death issue, that's going to be something where parenting time, visitation, relocation of children, modification of custody takes months, not days, by contrast. And then, Rahul, what's practical advice for our listeners on this stuff?
Practical advice for the listeners is if you suspect your co-parent has some sort of a substance abuse issue, document it. The first, unless there's, again, like a very bright line rule that says one will trigger some sort of enforcement action. If it's not that, document it. Typically, more than one is required. And so, depending on how serious it is, of course, if you find out that your ex just shot up cocaine, then the first one might be enough. So anyway, document everything, date, time, how you found out about it. Don't play detective. Talk to an attorney and figure out how you should approach this. Do not have your child be the tattletale. While you might be thinking you're doing a noble cause here, using the child as your detective will, in fact, backfire in some capacity because you're putting the child now in the middle of your conflict. I always tell people it's applicable to this, applicable to other things. The goal of courts is to figure out how can a child have both parents in the child's life, not how can I actively take a parent away from the child. So a lot of times people will say, look at this. This shows he shouldn't or she shouldn't have any parenting time. Well, it shows that someone has a problem. And a court's not going to punish someone because they did something. The court's going to say, okay, well, you clearly have a mental health issue manifesting it as a substance issue. So how do we make sure you get better so then you can start having time with the kid again? It's going to be more about a rehab situation than a permanent sort of, all right, that was it. Yep, you're punished. No more kid for you. So
the courts hate to pick one parent and make the other one the loser. And the child, the mindset is, Parenting time is the child's time with the parents. It's not the parents' time with the child. And people will say, I want my visitation. Yeah, I'm allowing him to have visitation. I want my visitation. Judges and guardians hate that kind of language because it's me, 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 me. And it's what I call balance sheet parenting. Like, I want Johnny as much as she gets Johnny. And I want him it better be in the best interest of the child. If you focus on the kid and you make all your points from the child's perspective, you're going to be doing much better than if it's all about me, me, me. I want time with the kids.
Raise the issue with someone, but don't weaponize it. Say, hey, look, you know what? I'm concerned about the fact that, Johnny was seeing dad passed out on the couch and he was trying to get a meal and he had to go to bed hungry because his dad wouldn't wake up. Well, okay, that's a problem.
That's focusing on the child,
right?
Not on you trying to get a gotcha moment. That's the perspective you want to have. That's wearing the good guy hat in court. Hey, I'm just here for the kids. I'm looking out for the kids. Not gotcha, I got this guy. Now I'm going to take the kids away. That's a thing to avoid. Let's turn to a financial question, Rahul. This is from the Illinois Divorce Support Network, our private Facebook group. Link is in the description. Easy to find this on Facebook, Illinois Divorce Support Network. We answer Illinois divorce questions. I mean, everybody else is welcome to join, but it's Illinois focused. Free to join. Anonymous to post. You don't have to post your name. You get crowdsourced answers from our audience. Some of them are right. Some of them are not right. That's not my fault. And we answer questions. What's not legal advice, we try to give our best answers to questions. A lot of them, we pick and choose, and we put ones we think are real significant on the pod. So here's one from the support network. We both have separate bank accounts. What if he doesn't want to disclose his financials? Is full disclosure required? Also, how reasonable is it to propose that he keeps his accounts and I keep mine? What Rahul and I have called a walkaway many times. Does a lawyer help with this kind of strategy and negotiation? What are we going to say? Oh, no, lawyers are terrible. Okay. Thank you. I'm in Cook County. That's the main county here where Chicago is. Okay, Rahul, what do you say to that?
Great. So, no, very good questions. Comes up quite a bit, actually. So, surprise to the listeners looking under the hood. This is probably why we picked this question. It was because it comes up a lot. So, as a general rule, working backwards, you are allowed to create a walkaway agreement, like Rafe said, or say, you keep yours, I keep mine, and no money needs to be exchanging hands or transferred back and forth, etc. Completely fine. Happens quite a bit. Nothing wrong with that. However, now is the first part of the question is we have separate accounts. The other side is refusing to disclose what they have. So without that disclosure, buyer beware, that person could have $10 in their account or $10 million in their account. So if you do a walkaway and you say, I don't know what this person has, but I'm fine with them keeping theirs and me keeping mine, well, the chances can be twofold. Either you get some form of an equitable division, or you're going to end up where one person has a lot more or a lot less than the other person does. So then the question of, are they required to disclose it? Yes. Under Illinois law, and I think every state in the United States, you have to disclose your finances if there's a request to disclose it, or if you're required to fill out some form of a financial affidavit that says currently what do you have in those accounts. So that disclosure cannot be objected to. And if someone is objecting to disclosing it, you'd initially think, well, that's kind of weird. So if you want it, you can get it. And your lawyer can certainly help request the documents, obtain updated balances, have them provide what all accounts they have, and not only how much they have, but rather, you can get statements going back several years if you wanted to. So depending on how far back you want to go in, well, this person had $1 million in their account 2 months ago, and now there's only $100,000. Well, where did it go? So, and surprise, right after we filed for divorce, that $1 million disappeared. So things like that, you can look into it. You're not only just entitled to a snapshot of what you currently have today, but rather you can go back historically looking through bank records and stuff. So yes, all that is allowed. They can't just simply say, no, it's not an option. And I mean, they can say, no, it's not going to be, they'll still be required to produce it. And you should talk to a lawyer about how to go about negotiating this and what you want to do, et cetera. So yeah, good question.
Cool. Yeah, that's really great. Thank you. Finally, today, I want to talk about little dating trends and relationship information. And yeah, this one is interesting. It's kind of about what they're calling the sex recession, and ties into AI, the rise of AI companions. Probably remember the movie Her, where the guy falls in love with an AI companion, basically. The short story is kind of like, are people giving up on human relationships? So there's a story from Psychology Today that was like wrapping up 2025 relationship trends. It was at the end of the year, but we thought this was interesting. And the demographics have shifted really in interesting ways and maybe kind of disturbing. So we know the birth rates are down. We might be below replacement rate in the United States, meaning our population is declining. I don't know, but right, it says Gen Z is having less sex than millennials, apparently, and millennials are having less sex than boomers did at that age. Young people are, quote, opting out of the dating pool. This is me quoting the Psychology Today story. For economic reasons and mental well-being, choosing to be celibate for periods of time and shunning hookup culture. Okay. AI relationships are increasing, according to what people are reporting. The rise of AI companions was one of the biggest conversations in 2025, and for good reason. AI companion or friend apps across the Apple App Store and Google Play have been downloaded 220 million times globally. 66 million of which were in 2025. People are reporting forming deep and intimate bonds with AI entities. Oh boy. That's not good, ladies and gentlemen. Big tech is doubling down on intimacy. TechCrunch estimates the market value of AI companions at well over $100 million at the end of 2025. I bet it's much bigger than that. OpenAI, Grok, and Meta are among the biggest players encouraging sexual and romantic engagement with AI tools. Sex may sell, but intimacy drives retention. Mental health professionals and this is me quoting, and ethical AI advocates are sounding the alarm bells of unregulated AI companions being responsible for many social problems. And there's been a lot of press and some litigation about AIs telling people to commit suicide and encouraging them to do bad stuff. And this person's so wrapped up in listening to the AI, they think it's a real thing. This is the next thing. Marriage is desired, but babies are optional. This is the quote marriage. This is the story. A study conducted recently by Match.com and Kinsey Institute. 68% of Gen Z and 62% of millennials are interested in marriage, but only about half of Gen Z say they want children. Where do we go from here? Well, they talk about things like younger generations. Are they self-regulating around tech? Are they doing digital detoxes? Is social media banning a solution? Regulating youth from watching social media, is that a solution? What about the loneliness epidemic? You know, all these things tying together. I do think social media has been a big and always on, never bored lives with this are a huge problem because we used to just go see friends and do things with people because we were bored. And we wanted human interaction. Now we can simulate that really too well. And as such, I think we're screwing up an entire generation of people. This is my 2 cents. But then the dating trends tie into this. And we've talked about these dating trends before, but you know, what they're seeing is more singles are exploring online only relationships. That's not a real relationship, folks.
That's some sort of, I don't want to call it something as a mental health issue, but you can call it some very, very mild mental health issue that's masking itself as this online-only thing where you don't want to physically meet someone for, or you know, so is it agoraphobia or it's something else? But, you know, it's sort of in that vein.
And there's this increase in a large number of people reported in surveys that they're open to what they call parallel relationships. One partner for physical needs, one partner for emotional needs. Well, that's wild. That's trended upward. And so we run into a series of interesting questions. You know, if we're replacing human connections with AI and online relationships, what does that mean for marriage rates, babies, divorce rates? This ties into our Hinge and Bumble discussions before about there is this group of people. I mean, a lot of people are, on the flip side, are craving human connection. And they're ditching these apps. It's like that kid that ditches real life for success in video games. You know, they say, well, I'm really great at Fortnite or Call of Duty and I'm ranking up all the time. But in life, they're not ranking up at all. They're living on frozen dinners and DoorDash and stuff. And they barely are hanging on to a job. So, you know, we're replacing real achievement with fake achievement. We're replacing real relationships with fake relationships. I think there's a lot to be concerned about here. And I'm a tech lover. Like in our law firm and in my life personally, we think tech is great. There's so much of a force for good, but like any of these things, it's a double-edged sword.
It's to make your life easier. It's not to replace your life.
Yeah. So we'll leave you with that. It's like very thoughtful, you know, consider what you're doing with these online relationships. Think about more time with real people and what really satisfies you and leaves you not feeling empty, but feeling fulfilled is the people you're with. There's my 2 cents. Thank you. So with that said, a couple of notes. Always, you can look at our past shows if you want to listen to more content from us. We've come out with about a show a week, And there's 53 previous episodes to listen to.
54.
And just jump around in the parts. Yeah, 54. If whatever interests you, can hop around in the shows and listen. Remember that my book, I Just Want This Done, How Smart, Successful People Get Divorced Without Losing Their Kids' Money and Minds, is available on Amazon, Kindle, Audible, and where all great ebooks are sold. My forthcoming book, I Just Want to Know, How Smart, Successful People Decide on Divorce Without Fear, Uncertainty, and Doubt, is going through editing. Once editing is done, I'm recording the audiobook. So we're getting close to publication. Also, almost 9,000 copies sold of I Just Want This Done, which is actually incredible for a self-published nonfiction book. So, whereas I did some AI searching and it said that if I walked into a publishing house and said I'd sold 9,000 copies, I would be a celebrity.
Wow.
In a major publishing house. So check out the book. It's not a vanity project. It's not some BS thing I cooked up overnight. It took a year. It's worth the read. 128 reviews on Amazon, 4.6 rating, and still a bestseller even today, 4 years after publication, 5 years after publication. Next episode, we're going to have more of fun content, interesting content about divorce. We'll be back here again. We live stream as always, typically Thursday morning, sometimes Friday morning, depending on court schedule. And then we edit the show and post it the following Friday. So we really appreciate you following. Like, share, subscribe if you like this content. Please give us reviews for the content. That's how we know this is working for you and how we get our feedback and what other people will find us if you give us those reviews on Apple Podcasts, Spotify especially, and YouTube for sure. And also, Rahul, how can people find you online?
You can find me at Chicago Divorce on Instagram and also on LinkedIn.
Awesome. You can find me at Rayford Palmer on all the socials. Thank you very much for watching the show. We're both Rayford Palmer, Rahul Iyer from STG Divorce Law in Chicago. Thanks very much and have a great week.